The Chinese-language social media campaign, launched by the CIA in May 2025, represents another significant case study demonstrating how these psychological operations work in practice. This campaign targeted Chinese government officials and workers, encouraging them to defect and provide secrets to the United States through platforms including Facebook, Telegram, Instagram, and X. The operation released videos depicting scenarios of Chinese officials becoming disillusioned with the ruling CCP, highlighting their fears for their families and their desire to control their destinies. These videos provided instructions on how to contact the CIA securely, including using the dark web browser tool. One video featured a senior CCP member expressing fear for his family as he witnesses officials being purged, realizing that his high status cannot protect them. This campaign represents one of the most aggressive public moves by the agency against China in recent memory. Lessons learned from these operations revealed that multi-generational psychological targeting requires different emotional appeals, with younger demographics responding better to peer influence, while older demographics respond more effectively to authority-based psychological pressure. The operations discovered that economic fear-based psychological appeals achieve higher success rates than political ideology-based messaging in populations experiencing financial uncertainty. Cross-platform psychological coordination requires careful timing adjustments because different social media platforms have distinct user engagement patterns that affect psychological message reception and emotional processing. International implications included diplomatic protests from targeted governments who identified the psychological operations and accused the United States of psychological warfare against civilian populations. Regional allied governments expressed concern about precedent-setting aspects of large-scale psychological operations targeting civilian populations through social media platforms. These operations prompted discussions within intelligence coordination bodies about establishing ethical guidelines for cross-border psychological influence campaigns affecting civilian populations. These contemporary case studies reveal the dramatic transformation in psychological operations capabilities and raise fundamental questions about how current methods compare to the psychological techniques that intelligence agencies relied upon for decades before the digital revolution changed everything. Traditional versus modern psychological tactics comparison. The fundamental differences between historical and contemporary psychological operations reveal how dramatically intelligence capabilities have transformed over the past 3 decades. Cold War-era operations like MKUltra and psychological interrogation programs influenced thousands of individuals over months or years through direct human contact and extensive resource investment. Contemporary digital psychological campaigns reach tens of millions of people within days, while achieving behavioral modifications that traditional methods could never accomplish at comparable scale or speed. This transformation represents more than technological advancement. It constitutes a complete reimagining of how psychological influence operates in human society. Traditional psychological operations required physical presence and direct human interaction, limiting reach to specific geographic locations and small target populations. Intelligence officers needed months to establish credibility and build psychological influence relationships with individual targets through face-to-face meetings and sustained personal contact. Historical operations affecting political sentiment in foreign countries might influence hundreds of individuals directly, and perhaps thousands of people indirectly through information cascades over periods lasting 6 months to 2 years. The preparation phase alone for traditional psychological campaigns required weeks of planning, cultural research, and operational security arrangements before any psychological pressure could be applied to targets. Modern cyber-psychological warfare operates globally through digital platforms reaching millions of users, simultaneously without geographic or physical constraints. The 2023 Venezuelan psychological operation reached 89 million users within 72 hours and achieved measurable political opinion shifts in substantial portions of targeted demographic groups within 6 weeks, demonstrating the dramatic scale and speed advantages of digital psychological warfare. Contemporary campaigns can be designed, approved, and deployed within hours using automated systems that analyze existing digital behavioral data and implement personalized psychological pressure campaigns immediately based on vulnerability assessments gathered over years of covert monitoring. The speed differential between traditional and modern psychological approaches shows how technological advancement has accelerated operational timelines from months to minutes. Traditional psychological pressure techniques needed extensive time periods to establish trust relationships and gradually apply influence through repeated personal interactions. Modern AI-assisted psychological operations can process comprehensive digital psychological profiles and begin targeted influence campaigns immediately without any relationship building period. Real-time adaptation capabilities allow modern operations to adjust tactics within minutes based on psychological feedback, while traditional methods required weeks or months to modify approaches based on target responses observed through direct contact. Traditional techniques that remain effective include authority figure influence, social proof manipulation, and fear-based psychological appeals, because these approaches exploit fundamental human psychological vulnerabilities that persist regardless of technological advancement. Authority compliance behaviors respond similarly whether the authority figure appears in person or through digital communications with enhanced credibility signals provided by verified account systems and algorithmic amplification. Social proof manipulation techniques work more effectively in digital environments because social media platforms provide continuous social validation feedback that traditional methods could never achieve consistently. Fear appeals maintain effectiveness across both traditional and modern applications, but digital delivery methods allow more precise targeting and emotional intensity calibration based on individual psychological profiles. Obsolete traditional techniques include physical intimidation methods, isolation-based psychological pressure, and time-intensive relationship building approaches that modern digital analysis can bypass entirely. Physical presence requirements for traditional interrogation and psychological manipulation become unnecessary when comprehensive digital psychological profiles provide more detailed vulnerability assessments than months of direct observation could achieve. Relationship-building techniques that required years of human asset development can be replaced by AI-generated personalized psychological approaches that create emotional connections and trust relationships through algorithmic manipulation of communication patterns and content delivery timing. Classic psychological principles have been adapted for digital applications through AI-enhanced targeting systems that identify individual psychological vulnerabilities and customize influence approaches for maximum effectiveness. Pavlovian conditioning techniques now operate through notification systems and social media engagement patterns that create psychological dependency relationships with digital platforms. Cognitive bias exploitation uses algorithmic content curation to create confirmation bias reinforcement, while social media echo chambers amplify psychological pressure through peer influence mechanisms. Authority figure psychological influence operates through verified account systems and algorithmic amplification that increases perceived credibility and social status of influence sources. Modern digital psychological operations demonstrate superior resource efficiency compared to traditional approaches through automated systems and AI-assisted analysis that reduce personnel requirements while achieving higher effectiveness rates. Traditional methods required extensive human resources, including specialized psychological warfare training, language expertise, cultural knowledge, and operational security capabilities that demanded years of preparation and ongoing personnel costs. Digital psychological warfare provides superior operational efficiency through reduced personnel requirements and dramatically improved reach capabilities that can influence millions of people simultaneously rather than dozens of individuals per traditional operation. Long-term effectiveness analysis reveals that modern digital psychological operations maintain sustained influence in substantial portions of targeted individuals with behavioral modifications lasting extended periods after campaign completion. Traditional methods created deeper individual psychological relationships, but affected smaller populations, while modern approaches achieve broader influence with significant portions of target populations maintaining modified behaviors long after campaigns end. Traditional psychological influence achieved behavioral changes in smaller percentages of successfully manipulated targets with influence lasting shorter average periods after operation completion. Hybrid approaches combining traditional psychological insights with modern technological capabilities achieve the highest effectiveness rates by leveraging human psychological understanding with digital delivery precision and scale. Operations that use traditional authority figure influence enhanced by technological amplification achieve superior effectiveness compared to purely digital approaches. Social proof manipulation techniques that combine authentic human testimonials with AI-generated supporting content and coordinated amplification create more convincing psychological pressure than either traditional or purely digital methods alone. Fear-based psychological appeals that incorporate traditional emotional triggers with personalized digital delivery based on individual vulnerability assessments demonstrate superior influence effectiveness compared to single-approach methods. Detection rates for traditional psychological operations averaged higher percentages because physical presence and human interaction created observable patterns that counterintelligence could identify through surveillance and behavioral analysis. Modern digital psychological operations demonstrate lower detection rates because covert delivery through normal social media interactions and AI-generated content appears as organic user engagement to both targets and platform security systems. Traditional countermeasures, including psychological training and resistance techniques, remain effective against direct psychological pressure, but provide limited protection against algorithmic manipulation and subconscious influence techniques used in digital psychological operations. Training requirements for psychological warfare operatives have shifted fundamentally from human relationship expertise toward technological manipulation capabilities. Traditional psychological warfare operatives required years of specialized education in psychology, cultural studies, language proficiency, and interpersonal manipulation techniques requiring extensive human resources and time investment. Modern psychological warfare specialists need technical expertise in artificial intelligence, data analysis, algorithmic manipulation, and digital platform operations that can be acquired through accelerated training programs. The skill transition represents a fundamental shift in educational backgrounds and operational approaches required for effective psychological influence operations. Future psychological operations will likely integrate emerging technologies with traditional human psychological understanding to create hybrid approaches that leverage both deep psychological insights and technological scalability advantages. Traditional human psychological understanding will remain valuable for designing effective influence approaches, while technological delivery methods will continue expanding reach and precision